Hi guys, this is the advisor and welcome back to my channel. As promised, I had told you that I would have given you a follow-up on the video I'd done previously showing and explaining and proving that Trinidad and Tobago is the parasite within CARICOM, and show that the reason why the rest of the Caribbean is not even further advanced is due to the hegemonistic behavior of that Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. But the main thing I will be showing in this specific video is not so much focused on Trinidad. It is focused on the traitors in Jamaica, who were born in Jamaica, who carry Jamaican passports, and who paid allegiance to Jamaica, yet who actually turned Jamaica around, hog-tied Jamaica, lift up Jamaica's skirt, and let Trinidad and Tobago shaft her for the past 49 years. And I'm going to name names and tell you the specific role that they play in giving Trinidad that, or should I say, those opportunities. And as you know, guys, I don't need to remind you, I'm not here for popularity, because popularity, you can't do that by speaking the truth. Because when you speak truth, the truth hurts. And a lot of people is going to tune out of this when they realize that they cannot handle what I have to say. But it has to be said, and somebody has to say it. So, how did Jamaica become the doormat for Trinidad and Tobago? In order to explain that, we need to go back in history. Because here, we have to lay the groundwork, the foundation for where we are today with CARICOM and with Trinidad and Tobago. And before I go any further, I have to make a quote from the great Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey said, and this is very relevant, quote, "A people without the knowledge of their past, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots," unquote. Because, like, seriously, if you don't know where you're coming from, you won't know where you're going. And to make it even more acute, you won't even know where you're supposed to go. So now, let's go back to 1961. On the 19th of September in that year, the entire West Indies had a vote. The population of all English-speaking Caribbean countries had a vote. They were voting whether to become independent on their own or to form a federation. As a federation, all the English-speaking Caribbean countries would become one single country. Although, even in that context, while we would have one prime minister, but each country would have its own premier and have some level of autonomy, but we would be one country, one passport. The countries voted, and it became 46% for and 54% against. So, it wasn't a yes, it was a no. The nay carried, and Jamaica, of course, put in the majority of the vote against becoming a part of a federation. At the time, we need to note also that there were two major political parties in Jamaica, the PNP and the JLP. The PNP wanted a federation, and comrades who are members of the PNP, they voted for integration into one country, the entire Caribbean. The JLP voted against federation and voted to go on its own into independence. So when Jamaica, who carried the majority of the no votes, because of course Jamaica had roughly 1/3 of the entire population of the entire Caribbean at the time. So as a result of that, we went for independence in 1962. Well, from those early days to this present day, both parties carry the same political stance when it comes to the Caribbean and Federation. To this blessed day, the JLP stand by its position of not wanting federation and wanting Jamaica to be on its own. Although since that has since softened a bit when going into CARICOM. I'll speak more on CARICOM in a moment. The PNP, I think this was one of the greatest loss for that party. And to this blessed day, I think that they regret not being part of a Caribbean West Indian Federation. They have done everything in their power to integrate themselves as much as possible into CARICOM or into the Caribbean. So while the JLP was looking outwards toward the rest of the world, the PNP was looking inwards towards the Caribbean as its lifeline. One of the first things that Michael Manley did when he came to power, of course, he was the leader of the PNP, and when it came to power in 1972, February 72, it started talks with the rest of the English-speaking Caribbean to form some kind of a neo-federation. In other words, the PNP was again trying, even after 1961 and Jamaica had made that decision, it was trying its best to restart the reintegration of Jamaica into the rest of the Caribbean in an extremely strong political way. It ended up in a new organization in 1973 known as the Caribbean Community, or the short with the acronym CARICOM. Now, this is a picture of some of the founding members who signed that treaty in 1973 in Chagaramas, Trinidad. In the picture, to most to the left, that's PM Errol Barrows, who was the then Prime Minister of Barbados. And then beside him, there is Forbes Burnham of Guyana, Eric Williams, next of Trinidad and Tobago, and Prime Minister Michael Manley, who was the sitting chairman of the event. Yes, he was basically head cook and bottle washer of it. Now, the four foundational pillars of this organization, as I'd said before, are coordinating economic policies and development planning, devising and instituting special projects for the less developed countries within its jurisdiction, operating as a regional single market for many of its members, that is the CARICOM single market, and lastly, handling regional trade disputes. But no PNP government has ever felt or will ever feel comfortable being outside of CARICOM, because it is part of why that party was created, I suspect. Now, as I had said before in the previous video, Trinidad would not sell us oil. They held on to their oil, they held on to their gas. And despite the number 2 pillar of the treaty, which says devising and instituting special projects for the less developed countries within its jurisdiction, Trinidad did not cooperate or make any effort to participate in any special project for the less developed countries within its jurisdiction. Of course, Jamaica at the time was the best developed one at the time anyway. But it never do so for Barbados, St. Lucia, Dominica, and all those other ones. And it ran Jamaica into the rut by using its cheaper manufacturing capacity, because it had such low energy costs since it produced its own oil, and it was able to flood Jamaican markets with its cheap goods and undercut the Jamaican prices, because we were spending a whole lot of money on oil and we couldn't compete with them because we had to buy oil at such expensive prices. And flooding Jamaica with the oil, they managed to put Jamaica in a rut. And this continued from the 70s well into the 80s and through into the 90s. Now, in the 90s is where the thing took an even more drastic turn, because then we had a government and being run by the people's, formed by the People's National Party, and they were in full favor of Caribbean integration or of sticking inside CARICOM. On top of that, the PJ Patterson's led administration did everything it could to facilitate the dumping of Trinidad goods into Jamaica. Plus, on top of that, they were not developing the Jamaican economy. So, combined with an inability to develop the Jamaican economy, combined with that with the dumping of goods in Jamaica, will kill off Jamaican jobs and killed off the Jamaican manufacturing sector. The Jamaican government at the time became bankrupt. And that was when it started selling off some of our major industries. There are too many to list, but let's list some of those that went to Trinidad. Life of Jamaica was sold to Trinidad and became Sagicor Insurance Company. RBTT was sold to Trinidad and became Sagicor Bank. Jamaica Biscuit Company and Spanish Town Road, the home of Excelsior Crackers, was sold to Trinidad. Air Jamaica, its franchise Air Jamaica, was sold to Trinidad. And our own Caribbean Cement Company, the foundation of all our blocks and the building for every single house in Jamaica, was then sold to Trinidad. And they bring that company into a state where back under the same PNP administration of PJ Patterson, Jamaica had to actually import cement because Trinidad was taking out the cement back to its country and selling it how it feels, and Jamaica had to import cement for its own purpose. Who remember that? So, Trinidad carried out one of the most heinous acts of international undermining against the Jamaican government. Did its best to kill off the Jamaican economy and then force the government, or rather render the government into a position where it had no choice but to sell the same Trinidad its asset and buy up the assets they did, and then move off all those sets of profits to Trinidad. And this was all done with the blessing of the People's National Party. Now, let's go back for a moment to the 11-year-old girl who was to visit her father there in Trinidad and who was threatened by immigration, locked in room, not given food, and held incommunicado like prisoners, and not even her father, who was outside waiting on her, could even know if she was even on the flight. When this hullabaloo broke in Jamaica, it was on every single piece of news throughout the island. And Jamaicans on a whole was outraged. The PNP never made an official statement. When social media blew up on the matter and the Jamaican population on a whole called for a boycott of Trinidad goods, the then Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Mr. A.J. Nicholson, you know what he said? The government of Jamaica cannot do anything against Trinidad, because if they do anything or take any steps, they would be in breach of the Treaty of Chagaramas. Okay, so listen to this. The Treaty of Chagaramas, Trinidad tear up the book. Besides, say it is going to do what it feels like, irrespective of whatever is or had been written on that treaty that it signed in 1973. It are going its own way and doing its best to undermine Jamaica, and all mealy-mouthed doormat A.J. Nicholson at the time could say he can't do it because he would breach the Treaty of Chagaramas. Then if somebody now play by the rules, why should you play by the rules? What we have to remember, is that Jamaica's population is 3 million. Trinidad's population is roughly 1.5. So we have twice their population. So Jamaica was specifically targeted by Trinidad because it is a safe dumping ground for their goods. And they would dump any amount of things on us, even if we cannot pay, because then we would be indebted to them. And by being indebted to them, we'll be beholden to them. Clause 4 of the 4 foundational principles is the CARICOM should handle regional dispute. And the Jamaican government did not raise a dispute with CARICOM to have it rectified by them. At that time, about a quarter of all goods on our supermarket shelves came from Trinidad. And there were very, very few Jamaican goods on the supermarket shelves in Trinidad. As a matter of fact, I can state this as a fact. You know what Grace Kennedy had to do in order to make sure that Grace Kennedy products are sold in Trinidad? They had to sell Trinidad part of the shares, a small part of their shares in the company. And so Mussels Jamaica Limited, who does new pack products, because that was the only way that Trinidad was going to open the market and let a certain percentage of the Jamaican products come in. In other words, them had to draw less. And that was clearly extortion. But Jamaican government sat idly by, presided over by P.J. Patterson and subsequently Portia Simpson Miller, and they did nothing. However, as a patriotic Jamaican, you know what I did? I immediately changed the masthead on my Facebook page to this. So from that day in 2013 when I got this news, I changed my masthead to this, and it has remained like this to this blessed day. And it will remain like this after I'm dead, and as long as Facebook exists. Unless Facebook take it down, this will remain what I stand for. Because this masthead will never ever change as long as I have a Facebook profile. There were a number of people who actually put up this as their masthead, in Jamaica, but they put it up for 2 weeks because their patriotism lasts for a week or two. Mine is forever, birth till death. They put up this masthead, and a matter of weeks, it's gone, and they're back to being chummy with the oppressor. And for those of you who had stayed on the video long enough, these are some of the products that Trinidad sends to Jamaica to kill off our market. These are only some. There are a lot more that couldn't hold on this page, so I just hold on this picture, but these are some. Look good. So for those of you patriotic Jamaican who want to support your country, support your nation, and build your country, these are the things not to buy. Take a snapshot of it, a screenshot or something, to remind yourself. Because trust me, Jamaican people have very short memories. The ethos of a comrade is this: we cannot have legitimacy. We cannot be validated as a party unless we are part of CARICOM. No matter how much we actually hug up the CARICOM monster, let it suck us dry, but we cannot leave and should not leave. This is by far the most extreme case of international Stockholm Syndrome manifestation I have ever witnessed in my life. To this blessed day, the trade deficit between Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica is astronomically asymmetrical. The last figures I have for 2022 is $486 million trade we do in terms of sending export to Trinidad. Trinidad's trade or export into Jamaica is $1.286 billion. While we are just a few hundred million, they are over 1,000 million. The fact is, you see, if we were to leave CARICOM tomorrow, we would be much better off. Because here is what. Without the Jamaican market, Trinidad's economy would falter. Because it can't sell its goods so freely elsewhere because it have the privilege of the common market, and because Jamaica, so it is able to legally dump any amount of its stuff here at preferential rates, something which it cannot do elsewhere. So if we didn't have such a little dipstick prime minister in PJ Patterson and this subservient lady called Portia Simpson Miller, they could have both taken steps and just cut off certain things, use any clause, use anything, just tap the goods at the port and make them start rotting. Shove over the container in the sea, scuttle the ship, do what you can. Play their game. And once you start playing their game and they realize that their goods not coming through, because we too would have set up non-tariff barriers, they would pull up their socks. But what? The subservient little runt, PJ Patterson, and I say runt because I want to use the C at the front of the word, but because of YouTube policy, I can't use the C at the front. I say runt. He hog-tied this country, turned beautiful Jamaica back way, lift up Jamaica's skirt, and allow Trinidad to rod us out. And the sad thing is, I keep going back, and I'll go back to the pledge. I'd said it in the first video I'd made, that Andrew Holness, who was opposition leader at the time, he had said that if he was to become prime minister, he would be taking another look at our relationship with Trinidad and Tobago, or with CARICOM, I think it was. And since coming to power, he has done nothing. We have not heard him say anything or take any steps. But Jamaica has the leverage. We have the consumer base. So we have the leverage. And if we stop this, Trinidad couldn't behave like it is doing. It can't behave so. It is doing it because we as a country, in all our greatness, have decided to roll over, prostrate ourselves, and make Trinidad walk away like a doormat. If Trinidad cannot behave better, Jamaica should leave Trinidad. Because Jamaica don't need Trinidad. Trinidad needs Jamaica. Them don't have the population we can consume everything where they make, so them economy are going to falter. Once we take control of our economy and stop taking their goods, our economy will start to grow because we would be consuming more and thereby producing more. And if we start to produce more, we are going to employ more people to produce the amount of things that will be demanded from our manufacturers here. So it's a win-win situation. We can't lose. We should either kick Trinidad out of CARICOM or we should come out because we don't need anybody. But comrades will never ever see or understand the power of this country and the power we wield or we can wield, but don't do it. CARICOM is a yoke around Jamaica's neck. CARICOM shackles Jamaica's feet. CARICOM holds Jamaica back. And I don't mean the wider Caribbean. I mean specifically the parasitic one, the one and single parasitic member of the Caribbean, of the CARICOM group. What I would hope for is for the PNP to leg off of that 1961 dream of Caribbean, or should I say of West Indian Federation, first thing. And two, I would like the JLP, true to its founding fathers, relook at CARICOM and see what we need from it and stand up and fight, because we don't even have to fight. We are the most advanced country in the Caribbean. We have the largest population. We have the more educated population. I mean, our manufacturing sector is probably the best in the Caribbean. And we need to leverage that and put Trinidad back in its place, or kick it out of CARICOM, or we leave. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Like, share, leave a comment below, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.